I'm Cami Kidder. Thanks for joining us. This is our new channel, Throw Like a Girl, focusing on gender equality in sports, particularly baseball. Over the past 7 years, I have been making a film, a documentary, about women in baseball. And people will be like, oh, that's really cool, but you mean softball, right? Over and over and over again. I guess the thinking is women must only be interested in softball because that's the girls' baseball sport or something. Couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, historians believe that women might have actually invented the progenitor of all stick and ball sports, stool ball. As the story goes, milkmaids were in the Highlands of Scotland in the 17th century, waiting around between milkings. There's a morning and an evening milking, and they needed something to do. So they set up their milking stools in a configuration, and they had a pitching target, which is very similar to cricket, but they had base paths, they ran, they hit the ball, they had scoring mechanisms, and I believe their ball was soft enough that they actually threw it at the runner to hit the runner to get them out, but the principle is the same. Jane Austen talks about baseball in one of her novels. In Northanger Abbey, which she wrote in 1788-89, she describes her main character, her heroine, Catherine Morland, this way. It was not very wonderful that Catherine, who had nothing heroic about her, should prefer cricket, baseball, riding on horseback, and running about the country at the age of 14 to books. Regardless of who invented the game, it's quite clear that women have always played baseball. Whereas softball was absolutely, unequivocally created by men for men. Specifically, these men were alumni of Harvard and Yale who were after a football game on Thanksgiving Day in 1887 were waiting around to hear the final result, and one tossed a boxing glove at the other, who hit it with a broomstick, and voila, softball was born. The rules were set down and codified in 1934. Specifically, it was a game that men could play indoor in the winter to get ready for baseball season. They called it kitten ball, nanny ball, sissy ball, mush ball. One thing they didn't call it was baseball. To be extra clear, softball is not baseball. They are different games, and in no way should softball be considered baseball for girls. To think or say so actually diminishes the efforts of both sets of athletes. The girls who want to play and excel at softball, which they can do all the way through the Olympics right now, or the ones that are fighting for acceptance on the baseball diamond. Both sports should be open to both genders. A few of the main differences are, of course, in pitching. You're used to seeing the underhand pitch, maybe the windmill pitch from a collegiate softball player, a fast pitch, or the slow arc of a slow pitch softball. And that is pitched from level ground 40 feet from home plate. Whereas in baseball, they throw in an overhand motion or even a sidearm motion, but it's coming from a raised mound 60 feet 6 inches from home plate, and there's a rubber to kind of push off from to get more force, more torque. So the diamond size is also another huge difference. The base paths in softball are 60 feet. So that's the distance from home to first, first to second, and so forth. And then in baseball, it's 90 feet. It's 30% longer. So if you remember your geometry, everything gets bigger. So the outfield is much bigger. The distance to the fences is bigger. The distance from third base to first base to throw is bigger. And I think that's where this whole myth sort of started coming in here, that women just can't handle it. Like, we need a more gentle sport. We need a smaller field to play on because it's just too difficult for women to run these distances to throw the ball that far. Now, I'm not saying that every single woman can play baseball and handle those differences, but every single man can't either. So it's not like we just throw the sport out and be like, okay, well, if everyone can't do it, I guess no one can do it. The size of the ball is probably what I think is one of the biggest differences and actually makes the least sense, because if you look at a softball, it is 11 to 12 inches circumference, and most times women's hands are smaller than men's hands. Mine happen to be fairly good size, but they're still women's hands, whereas a baseball is 6 inches around. So, I mean, it's literally twice the size, and which one fits better in your hand and gives you more control and ability to throw. Now, a softball weighs about 7 ounces, a baseball weighs about 6 ounces, but this is a much denser ball due to the materials that it's made with, so it goes a much further distance when you hit it with a bat. It is very, very hard to hit a softball for distance. Another reason for the smaller field. A home run in softball is 200, 250 feet. A home run in baseball could be 450 feet in the pros. So the bats are also very different. This is an actual regulation Major League bat. They can be made of maple or ash. They need to be made of wood. And they can be up to 42 inches long. Whereas in softball, which I don't have an example of, they can be no longer than 34 inches, and they're typically made of some sort of composite, like a carbon fiber, a Kevlar, some kind of really tough material. I don't know the actual reason, but my guess is, again, because we talked about the softball being so much harder to hit for distance, that maybe a harder bat made of a harder substance makes it go further. Just like college players and high school players play with aluminum bats typically more than wood bats, because again, they can hit the ball farther. Baseball plays 9 innings, softball plays 7 innings. Another one of these differences that said this is a nicer sport for women because they don't have the stamina to play a full 9 innings. I don't know where these notions came from, but they're prevalent throughout all sports. It wasn't until the 70s where women could run the marathon because our ovaries would fall out with that much pounding. Or even still in tennis, women play 3 sets, men play 5. It's like we can handle it. If you're an elite athlete that's made it to the final of Wimbledon, trust me, they can handle 5 sets. Now, of course, it's important to know that there are variations to all of these things. In youth sports, there's slow pitch and fast pitch in softball, there's different diamond sizes, there's different amounts of innings that are played. But my point here was to give you the major differences as to why softball and baseball are different sports, and that one is not the girls' version of the other. Now, in truth, there are no men's sports, there are no women's sports, there are just sports. They don't have a gender. It's society that creates all these rules and regulations and restrictions and ideas of what women are capable of and what men are capable of. Fortunately, in the United States, we have Title IX, which is a law, federal law, passed in 1972, signed by Richard Nixon of all people. And it states, and I quote, "No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, or denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity that receives federal financial assistance." So basically this means every student at every school has to have the same opportunities as every other student at that school. It's pretty simple, right? But it's amazing how many fights over Title IX still occur. Of course, there's similarities. Baseball and softball both use a round ball, a round bat, a glove. There's bases. You run to them. The pitcher's job is to get outs. But they're not the same game as it is in basketball, in tennis, in golf, in swimming, in skiing. Those are the same sport played by both genders separately or sometimes co-ed. But we just have this weirdness with baseball and softball that isn't the case with any other sport. So if you agree with me or don't agree with me, start a conversation below. Let's have a conversation about why this is. Because I think once we kind of really shine a light on this and people start to question and go, it really is weird that we have this separate sport for girls that men also play, by the way, at a competitive level. It's not like there's a separate women's baseball really anywhere. There used to be in World War II, but there isn't anymore. So that's kind of what we're all about on this channel, is discussing these gender equality differences and seeing what we can do about them. So if you like our videos, please subscribe. Please click the bell below to get notifications when we post new videos. And thanks so much.